Marcy, could you read the statement? We'll call the meeting to order.
Yes. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public and the press on March 4th, 2020, and was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-7. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the township budget. Official action may be taken. Vice President Auerberger.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy. Here. Councilmember Van Tassel.
Here.
Councilmember Weller. Here. Council President Shortway.
Present. Let's salute the flag, please. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's move to public comments for current agenda items only, limited to 3 minutes per person. May I have a motion to open the floor to?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Does anyone care to address the council? Seeing no one wishes to address the council, may I have a motion to close public comments?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Items for discussion. Council comments and recommendations for the 2020 budget. Somebody like to start the discussion, please?
Could we ask administration to go over all the pages that they've actually? Maybe they
Sure.
could-
Excuse me?
because Administration, because we were given many changes,
Yeah.
many sheets.
Let me, I guess this is just, this is budget hearing for us, but it's also for the public too. Saying that we have people here who wasn't here before. So people won't feel like they're coming in the middle of the stream. This is our third budget workshop. As mayor, I'm required to present a budget to the council. And the council has to approve that budget. Under this form of government, it forces you to work in a partnership relationship. There have been things that I've presented in the budget, and they are designed to ensure that the town operates in the most effective and efficient manner. That's primarily what I believe my job is. You know, as a manager, that's what my job is. The council's responsibility is to look at the budget as a whole and to look at line items, to question us about it, and to ensure that they want to support what I've recommended. At the previous two meetings, the council, the whole budget discussion has focused really on some, what I called compensation equalization adjustments to salaries. Essentially, we have a very, very small staff. And it's important that that staff serve the public in the most effective and efficient manner. We've got an experienced staff too, and one that I think that's quite good. I don't want to be changing people. I want people to want to work here. Luckily, 90+% of all the folks who work in our township actually live here. They're taxpayers also. So there's an advantage for them in doing that. However, when we look at their financial compensation, for several of them, not all of them, many of our employees get their financial compensation through contractual agreements and what have you. But for many of our employees, what I really found is that when you look at what other employees around the state are being paid for those particular positions, they are significantly below the average. And the reason we have to look at it like that is that these employees are trained, they have skills, they get certified, and they can actually work anywhere. It's not like a person in Vernon should automatically be paid less than a person in some other town simply because of the fact that a house in Vernon perhaps is less or more some other town. This is a lot like I would call like being a plumber, for example. There's a fee that plumbers get paid. You and I might believe that plumbers get paid too much, and it costs us too much when we have to hire a plumber. But if we want a good plumber, we're going to have to pay that particular cost. And it doesn't matter whether or not I live in Vernon, whether or not I live in Jefferson, or whether or not I live in Rockaway. The cost of a plumber is the cost of a plumber. Another example that I use, which may or may not be so realistic, but I think most people would kind of relate to it. Most of us believe professional athletes get paid too much money, way too much money. But if I owned a professional football team and I wanted a good quarterback or a good running back, I might believe they get paid too much, but I'm going to have to pay that particular cost to get a good person or to perform that particular job. So looking at the salaries that our employees get, their financial compensation, and I'm going to go through this in total detail, but just a summary. For example, it's only maybe about 9 or 10 employees, because the rest of the people are getting their raises based on their contractual benefits or some other thing. I just gave a couple of examples. Example, there was one employee whose current level of compensation was actually 37% below the average. And what I recommended is bringing that person up to a level of 18% below the average. I haven't advocated in my budget to bring anyone up to the average, but below the average. There's another employee whose salary was 35% below the average, and I advocated bringing that employee up to their compensation 21% below the average. So I'm going to go through all that, but the council president, in conjunction with the council, made it clear to me that they understood what I was saying, but the council was not prepared to allow those kinds of increases. And quite frankly, as the mayor, I have to say, okay, because of the fact that if we don't pass a budget, then this town can't operate. We're operating on a temporary budget right now. And last year, for various kinds of reasons, the budget didn't really get passed until almost a half of the year was over. That was a tremendous disadvantage to our employees. And it might have even cost us more because of the fact that we couldn't go out and bid for salt. There are lots of things that we could not do. I simply want to get this budget passed if we can, give our employees the money that they know that they'll have to be able to serve our employees. So therefore, I've got to compromise. I can sit here and say, I am not going to change anything, and the council can say, I won't vote for that budget, and we just got a stalemate. That's no way to really work. That's not what the people in this town elected us to do. So the only thing that has been focused on at these meetings have been that. There might be other things that council members might object to, but we hadn't gotten to those yet. Perhaps they want to get to those at this particular point in time. But essentially, as I understood, as our last meeting, our council said that, the kind of financial compensations that you're recommending, Mayor Burrell, we won't buy. And I think they said something to the fact we'll look at maybe a 3 or 4% across the board. And so maybe that's where we're going to come to at this particular point in time. And when Councilwoman Murphy said there was some new information we provided, there were some things that they had asked us to correct in the budget. There were some figures that were not correct. They were based on figures not complete for this year. There were line items in the budget maybe that should have been in it. For example, there was one committee that I had in the budget that we don't really have anymore. We sanitized that. We did all those kinds of things. And then what we did, we sent the council people a new package reflecting those figures. So that's where we are right now at this point in time. So that's my summary, Mr. President, just to kind of bring us up to date on what we're trying to do today.
And those changes, what would that equal on the average one per year? On the top of my head, I want to say it's
It's about a $61 increase.
$61.
It's about a $61 increase, and my initial budget proposal, I think it was $72. Am I correct? It was $72. And essentially, a couple of things that we did, we used more of our, not available balance?
Fund balance?
Fund balance. And available balance, Joe, you might recommend, is a term that we use in the school board. That is that the state requires organizations to have a certain fund, a kind of a savings account, for lack of a better word, so that when you have these unfortunate things that happen, you have a huge, unusual snowstorm. You have something that happens and you haven't budgeted for it. So you need to be able to have that money aside so you don't have to go out and borrow it and spend more money. So essentially what we've been trying to do over the last few years, under Mayor Shortway's administration, and I'm continuing that, we are trying to use less and less of that we can. And in fact, we are working on trying to get on a situation whereby we can pay as we go, that we won't really have to borrow. But it was requested at the last meeting that we use more of that balance. So we brought more of that balance into the budget, and did a couple other things, and it resulted in us reducing the average cost per family from, on an average home, down to $61. That's actually $11 or a 15% increase from 72 to 71. 72 to 61, I guess it was.
It's my understanding too, increasing to 600,000, the last 3 years, we used $600,000 of the fund balance, and we were able to generate the full 600,000.
Right.
My first year in, we used 1.1. The year before, the former administration before mine used 1.4 and I think 1.2 million. So we really have turned it around. But I think the extra 100,000 in there doesn't hurt.
It doesn't
the fund
hurt.
balance. We'll be able to safely regenerate that.
And considering what you just think, the previous administration, this is not trying to throw fire at anybody, we're just looking at the fact. They may have had reasons they were doing it. Using $1 million plus, bringing it into the budget, that's the way you offset a tax increase. You don't have to raise that money, you bring it into the budget. But what we were looking at that balance going down, 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 and keeping our fingers crossed that nothing really happened. Well, thank goodness what then Mayor Shortway did, he said, you know what, guys, we're running on thin ice. We've got to stop this. So we've been using less and less and less of that. And so what I wanted to do this time was use even $100,000 less. But considering the fact that the council wanted this cost per home to be less, and we've got to compromise somehow, we simply bring more of that in there and make it up some other time.
I think the biggest thing that hurts us is the reserve for uncollected taxes. And it's Legends. Had Legends paid their 2019 bill, which is approximately 700, and I'm going by memory, 24,000, taxes would have increased on the average house $3 with this budget. $3. They owe us a total of $2.7 million.
Right.
And what I would like to do, not obviously today, but in 2 weeks, have an executive and discuss what we can do about this. That would be legal strategy, so we'd have to do an executive, but they just can't be allowed to get away with not paying. And then we have to pick up everybody that pays their property taxes, because the schools in this county are gonna get paid. We pay their portion, and it's just not Legends. I think this year it's $3.1 million that we have to hold as the rut.
Right.
Reserve for uncollected
Uncollected
taxes is the rut. And again, that's really what's killing us, and we're trying to pay down the debt.
Yeah.
2023 is coming. Those bonds, the SCUMA bonds, Vernon bond, well, SCUMA bonds jumped from $1 million to $1.5 million. We need to get ready.
I didn't run for election, and I don't think any of the council people did too, to raise taxes on me, on 99% of the folks who work in this town, and our other taxpayers. I most certainly did not do that. But a certain amount of this budget is just almost fixed. There are 7 categories out of 26 categories that account for almost 70% of this budget. 7 categories. And these are ones that, if you look at those, where you're going to change. It's insurance for employees. It's different kinds of things that just kind of locked in. And as Council President Shortway said, this reserve fund collectors taxes is just ridiculous. We're reserving $3 million this year for taxes that we due us that we think that we are not going to be able to collect. And most of that is Legends. As it relates to Legends, we aren't just sitting on our hands with this. There's some other things that we're working on as it relates to Legends. And I don't think it's no secret. One of the things that we're doing, we've been, former Mayor Shortway, I found he's been trying to get their attention. He's been trying extremely hard. And he hadn't been successful in doing it. It's been a one-way street. Now, all of a sudden this year, and it's not just because of me, but because of the timing, this year, their liquor license is up for renewal. It's a liquor license that they've been what they call keeping in their pocket for the last 12 years. They hadn't used it. And that works to our disadvantage because of the fact that in any business establishment, the way they are rated in great part is based on their income. So he hadn't been using that liquor license at all. And we think that's a violation of the state liquor laws. That's what we're challenging. So now that his liquor license is up for renewal, we are protesting it. And all of a sudden, we're getting his attention. All of a sudden, we get his attention. For the first time, I had that principal owner to call me. He wants a meeting. And so he and his attorney, my attorney, and maybe the council president, we're going to talk. But our bottom line is that we need those back taxes paid, not just the $725,000 that they owe us this year, but the millions of dollars that they owe us. And we want that place developed. We want that place developed. And if in fact that they don't do something to move forward, and we're doing this because it's been difficult to get the owner to decide on some kind of development agreement. Not just tell me. I don't want to hear it. Just tell me. I want it in writing. I want something to confirm and say you're going to develop this at a certain particular point in time. He hadn't been able to do that. He wouldn't do that, and he wouldn't pay the back taxes. So if in fact we don't get something from them, I will even ask the council to consider eminent domain to take over the place. We've got to do something, guys. We cannot constantly align it. You heard former Mayor Shortway say that if they had just paid us what they owed us this year, not the other years, this same budget that we have here right now would be $3 an employee, $3 per home. That's ridiculous. So we're working on those particular things, but this is where we stand as it relates to the budget and what we're trying to put forward.
So I asked the council, where would you make cuts, significant cuts, to lower the cost per household? Does anybody have any suggestions?
Well, of course I'll have something to say. By just increasing the fund balance isn't really, I mean, it's bringing it down, but that's not really the answer, which is, like I said, what you've done. I really believe that, I could go through the budget, but, as I made a few recommendations in the first meeting, and they were just things off the cuff. But what happened is the mayor made a suggestion. He said, gee, nobody's mentioning the police budget. Okay, you're right. And on that sheet that I handed out that day, I said I had no recommended changes at this time because there's really not much income. Most of it is all salaries. It's in, health benefits. So there's, you can't take cars away. Right. At the last meeting, Council President Shortway said, gee, because I brought up, sending employees to school to actually change, to get certifications, to have a second, somebody certified as a tax collector, tax assessor, CFO, and municipal clerk when we already have them. Because once they're in those positions, they're in union jobs right now. So once they have achieved that, what we'll be looking for, because in the last couple of years, the only thing I keep hearing is desk audit. And it's not always driven by the employees. But at the last meeting, Council President Shortway said, gee, nobody mentioned that the police are going to school. When the police go to school, which is in their contract, and they come back, they're still in their same position. That's not advancing them. They're still police officers. They're not being promoted to a lieutenant. They have to sit and they have to wait their turn. They're just, some of the information that they're learning is actually directly to their job without affecting their salaries or their positions. So since Mayor Burrell brought up the salary so much, this last bit that we received a copy of this state statute, NJSA 40A9-165, salaries and wages. And in it, it says, no such ordinance shall reduce the salary of or deny without good cause an increase in salary given to all other municipal officers and employees, to any tax assessor, chief financial officer, tax collector, or municipal clerk. Well, as the mayor said, the first thing that he presented to us was doing a equalization with just the municipalities that have, I don't know if they voluntarily give their information to the League of Municipalities.
Yes.
But it's not all the municipalities. It's whoever gives their information. So you put the information in, you get an average out. My opinion, it's not comparing apples to apples. It's not comparing somebody that maybe has had a certification for 1 year or 25 years, or whatever their background may be. The next was, we were actually given a memo. See, we have a Board of Ed member. We were given a memo showing what salaries were for administration and principals and things of the schools. You know, they really have no correlation to the municipal salaries here.
I agree.
So I'm just, it was information given to us, but it,
I absolutely agree. This has no bearing on what we're doing here.
well, so now what we have, now what we were given is, we were given a chart, and it shows, so what administration, and I'll say administration, gave us was a list of the PBA raises, increases, let's call them increases, the AFSCME contract, DPW, and the UAW, which are some of the clerical and goes down to telecommunications in the police department. And then there's also an average for non-contractual employees. So the raises, so they looked at everybody's raise, if anybody got a raise. So in the police department, if you're due your longevity, because there are police officers, and I believe they get longevity, and I think it's at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20. That's it. And I think it's increments of 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. So you could have a year that there's a couple officers that are achieving or receiving this longevity. Also in the new contract, it appears that all the patrolmen are receiving 1.5% increase, whereas anyone from corporal up to captain are 2%. And then if they have longevity or what have you, or if they're moving ahead in one of their levels, they may get that. But the increase is the 1.5% and the 2%. Any steps or any longevity, those were all contractual. When they were hired, here's the contract. It's just like with the DPW. You can't take somebody that's a laborer that started at $40,000 and then next year they move up to the next level and they've received an increase. I think it's that contract. They don't even, if they're still in those steps, I'm not even sure if they get the 1.5%, but the DPW is at 1.5%. That's their increase. Councilmember Weller said 2% was low. Councilmember Van Tassel said he would like to see 3 to 4% for the non-union employees. So we have the police department taking away what they were being given when they were hired. Here's your contract. You're going to go through your police officer. There's like nine levels you have to go through before you get to top pay. But your increase is 1.5%. If they're a police officer and they don't move up to corporal for 15 years, for 5 years, whatever that percentage is, that's what they're getting. If it's 1.5% or 0%, that's what they're getting. Now, again, DPW, same thing. They're getting 1.5%. And I think in their contract, if you're on that level, you don't get the 1.5%, I think, I'm not sure. The UAW, which are the clerical, and it goes down to the police department, like I said, I think it's a 911 dispatcher, 1.5%. Okay, so, I'm going through this, and I'm seeing, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because the 4 statutory employees, the memo we're given is the 4 statutory employees would like a 7.28% increase in their salaries because they've averaged everybody's increase in salaries. But you can't take somebody's promotion, somebody's longevity pay, somebody that moved to another level through the steps and say, oh, look, they got a raise. I'm going to try to capitalize on that. I mean, we could virtually be looking at 4 employees attempting to get 7, 8, 9, maybe 5% every year. This statute that we were given here, this states, salary given to all other municipal employees or officers and employees. All the officers and employees are not receiving over 7%. So, I could take, I think I went through it. You have some in the police department getting 2%, some getting 1.5%, DPW at 1.5%, the UAW at 1.5%. I'll take those, I'll average them out. I think it comes out to 1.625. That's what the average is. That's what the average employee is getting if they're not in that progression stage. So to come up with this elaborate, I think somebody put an awful lot of time in this. And to interpret this statute in that manner, I'm not sure who did this.
Let me just say this. Obviously, obviously it appears, I'm not so sure how it appeared with the majority of the council because I hadn't heard them to vote. But on the part of Councilwoman Murphy, who's made her positions very, very clear, it's the salaries that's an issue for her.
No,
What?
excuse me, no.
All right.
And let me clarify that. Our first budget meeting, when we first received the budget, there was, you had brought up this whole compensation, equalization, whatever.
Right.
So it was really brought it to the forefront. And, and what we had gone through as a municipality, as a council, with salaries last year, it was something fresh on my mind. But that does not mean that that's my only concern.
Okay, well.
So, but, and like I said, we went through a lot of different aspects of that last year.
Well, as it relates to the salaries, the council has said that they will not approve what I recommend. I've accepted that, fine. Tell me what you'll approve, let's get on with that, and then let's get on with the other items, and let's get a budget. That's all I'm saying. So if that's not something, whatever you want to approve, just tell me. That's all I really want to know. So, we don't have to go through all of the other stuff unless you really want to, but, what will you approve?
What is
Just
the
tell me.
effect? What is the effect of a 4% across the board for those 10 employees or however many it is? What is the effect on the budget?
The effect on the budget.
How much money are we talking about? What percentage? How many tax points? Or what percentage of a tax point?
No tax point for sure. Even if the interesting thing is that if in fact this budget had passed with my initial recommendation, it would not have affected $1 how much any homeowner would have paid in taxes. Not one single dollar whatsoever. And if we take those out, it's not going to reduce it by any particular amount. So, it's not going to really impact it. The salary increases based on the 4% that I thought I heard the council say, and
Excuse me, you heard Council President say 4%.
I'm
You heard-
the one.
And,
Okay.
and please, as you go through this, please, let me remind you, here's a memo from last year, okay? Increases were given. We had, the zoning officer last year received 3,410 as an increase. This was a memo from Council President Shortway when he was mayor. Recreation, 5,000. DPW director, 5,000 plus the 2%. CFO, 5,000 plus the 2%. Deputy registrar was increased by 930. DPW director and CFO earned certifications. New Jersey Department of Personnel upgraded our recreational director's titles. Okay, the thing is, we can't keep, as a municipality, so it's like, let's be fair here. How can you tell the DPW they can get 1.5%, but let's just give 4%? And it's not, and I know what you're saying, but when does it end? It's every year.
Well,
It's every year. And
let's end it this year. Tell me what.
2%. It doesn't come to that. If I average those, if I
Are
average those
are you
percentages.
saying, as a council person, that you will approve a 2% across-the-board increase?
Yes.
Okay,
I-
all right.
But
Now,
that wasn't good enough. You
Well,
see,
no,
that's what I'm saying.
if we can get 3 council people, because that's what we need, is a majority, to agree on that, that's what we'll go with. And let's move forward and resolve those issues, and let's get a budget. That's where I am, Mr. Council President. You know, that one council person, you know, I heard 4%, but as Ms. Murphy so kindly corrected me, that was your statement. So,
I will.
and I don't know, if you can get 3 votes for 4%, good. If we can get 3 votes for 2%, good. But let's just do it and move on.
Well, and I'm giving out, I have
Because
copies.
it's not going to impact what the taxpayers pay. And I'm prepared to work with the council to manage any other kind of impact that might have, so.
You talked.
To
but
me,
excuse-
I'm sorry, to me it does. It doesn't matter, we can be politicians all we want and say this percent, that percent. It's still money that has to come out of the taxpayer's wallet. Whether it's enough to bump it up to another percent, it's still money that we're making them pay. So every dollar that we have coming out of here that's going into this budget from the taxpayers does affect them.
Well, that's great, and that's why, and if we want that to be 2% across the board, let's just agree on it, whatever the case might be. I'm trying to make sure, this is our 3rd budget meeting, I'm trying to leave here so I can finally have a budget that I can introduce to the council, and we can move on. That's what we really want to do. That's what the people in this town wants to do. That's what our workers want to do. What do we got to work with, Mayor Burrell? That's what they're asking me. And so just let me know.
And might I add that with employees, and no disrespect to any employees, but any that were hired, that's what they negotiated, okay? And as the council, I mean, everybody got involved in the clerk hire, no offense. It was just, that's what was negotiated. You know, the salary was negotiated. When our tax assessor was hired last year, the council received a memo from Mr. Shortway saying, this is what we offered. I would hope that the council would agree with it. That's less than a year ago. So, you know, these were pays. The CFO, we went through this last year. You know, from the hire to the time that you know, it actually came out. I mean, we went back and forth with the salaries. So all of this has been hashed and rehashed and negotiated. The only one that has, out of those 4 statutory employees that has been here, is the tax collector that, if I guess maybe he's been here 8 years. So I'm not, you know, it's difficult, like when you say let's end it here, but it keeps coming up. And I have to say that this you know, this statute, by the way, has been floated around this municipality for many years.
Well, you know what? See, we keep talking around with this salary thing. I'm trying to run it. We've got, this statute is, that particular statute for real. By the way, the statute that Ms. Murphy is talking about is a statute that says that there are certain designated employees who cannot receive an increase any less than the average of what you're offering everybody else. And what she said is that average, as we've calculated it, is incorrect.
It's not an average, it doesn't say average.
Well,
It says, it says an increase in salary given to all other municipal employees. But when
okay.
you look at steps and you look at promotions
Well-
and you look at longevity, none of that should be
well,
included in increase.
maybe you're right, but that won't be decided by us. That'll be decided.
But that's what, but that's what.
No. What I'm trying to say is that if those employees appeal that, you and I won't decide that. It'll be the state who'll decide that. And let me just say, we've gone through this once before in this town. In fact, in 2013, where we had those employees who appealed that kind of decision, and they won it. And here, they actually won that.
Which one is
And
that?
excuse me.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
can I see that?
And they won that, and pass these to the other, and they won that.
I believe what this had to do with.
Well, what it has to do
You know what
with,
this had to do with? I believe this had to do with the fact that there was a referendum and the pays were frozen because of an ordinance.
Well-
There was a petition, so what happened is, but if you notice, 1.75%, because that was what the other employees were getting. Not not
Well-
longevity.
Okay, all right,
So,
okay.
but this stemmed from an ordinance that was introduced, that was passed, that had to do with excessive increases. That was when the mayor, I think the mayor at that time, wanted $70,000, and it went to a vote and it failed. These employees were all on that ordinance, and that's what happened. All the pays were frozen. If you read this ordinance for this statute, it says you do a referendum and the pays were frozen for 2 years. So this is what, I believe that was what was.
Well,
the-
Ms.
the
Murphy,
outcome.
you know, you may be correct. I'm prepared to let someone else decide that, the appropriate authority. I don't have any problem with that. All that I really want to do is to be able to get a budget done, to pass this, or you indicated that you would agree for a 2% across the board increase. Is that what the council wants, or do they want 3 to 1, 4? What does the council want?
The
I
average
agree
is
with
1.625.
I agree with 4%.
And the average is
That's my
1.6.
comment.
Well, and I know, well, at this is a public meeting. Can you vote at this meeting? That's a public meeting. I think you can vote.
Only on the introduction, right?
Well, I mean, can you take a straw poll? Can you give me some kind of indication?
You're talking
as to-
about what's going to go in the budget.
Excuse me?
You're talking about what would go in the budget.
What would go in the
We're
budget?
not talking about the vote.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, what would go in the budget? You know, tell me,
I'm not a lawyer. I don't see any harm if someone wants to make a motion, second it.
well, get a
Do a
straw poll.
poll.
Put
If
it
you
out in the
get-
open.
if
the
you get a
public
straw
sees where we
poll-
stand, so it's fair, the public sees it.
And by the way, I
There's
do
a
have
record.
copies of the pieces of the union contracts just to show the council members
Okay.
where the percentages are.
That's fine. If I can get a straw poll to tell me the amount that the council will agree on, I'll go back, we'll make those adjustments to the budget, and then we'll present the budget to the council. And I'm assuming, once we present that budget, it's one that you say you agree on. When I introduce it at a council meeting, you'll pass it, and we'll go on.
Excuse me, there's one other thing that, since we're talking about salaries, and that's the stipend that's in the salary for administration. That stipend is now, I believe it's at $4,000, and it did not appear in the budget last year. That employee received an increase, and I spoke to the mayor about this. We passed a resolution, I think it was 19-155, I have it here. The employee received a 2% increase, which would have amounted to, I believe it's $1,165, when in fact, at the same time frame, the employee ended up being given $3,000. So it was like little over, I think it was $1,830, it was $3,001. $1,836 was not approved. Okay, they called it a stipend, HR and benefits. We never created that. That's not in an ordinance. I'm told, oh, you don't have to. Okay, you have to have the position created. So then when I opened all the payroll changes, so the 1165 that we approved, 15 out of the 3,001, 1,500 was charged to finance, 1,501 was charged to administration. So in fact, the employee received, I guess it was 1,800 as a raise, instead of, it was just, there's hundreds of dollars more that they actually got in their raise. So it's like, it doesn't matter almost what we vote on here, it doesn't matter what resolution we pass. We're just gonna say we're gonna give out a raise and that's it. I mean, this is new, and now it's back in the budget. The only reason we even saw it, or I even saw it, is because it appeared as a stipend. So how do we rectify that? How do we rectify that an employee received $1,836 last year without any vote? No vote. And now we're going to tack on 4%.
Well, Mr. Council President, I've tried to.
Well, I'm gonna
To
make a
say,
motion.
I won't, just please, just give me something.
I'll make a
Let's just
motion.
do something.
First, for the compromise, I offered at 4%. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can we do a roll call on this?
Sure.
This is 4% across the board,
For just department heads?
for just the department heads
Well,
that are affected, or what is it,
Well-
10 or 11 employees?
I think you should name them
They're by position,
by position.
not
No,
by their names. Can you name who they would be?
And they're non-salary.
Name
Right,
them.
like it would be the recreation director, tax.
That are non-union.
Yes, can
Yeah,
you?
but you
Donnell,
need
could
to
you
name
do-
the positions.
Could you do that for us, please?
Because I don't have a
Are
list
you
here, I don't
in-
want to miss any.
Are you including the ones for tonight.
That's why I'm asking.
That's a separate issue.
I think that they'll be on this list.
I'm not, okay.
Clerk?
Yeah, I'm just gonna read the ones that are on this list.
Yes.
Okay. The clerk, the chief financial officer, the collector, the assessor, land use administrator, recreation/senior director, DPW director, fire marshal, payroll clerk, court administrator, zoning officer. Do you want me to do the other three?
So they're not all department heads.
No.
So that's my question.
The non-contractual.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, is you're saying department heads and it turns into, it grows.
The
Those people just
non-contractual
named.
employees,
We'll
yes.
include that in the resolution. Or not the resolution, the motion.
Those people just named.
Those people just named.
Okay.
So we do have a second. Can we do a roll call on?
Vice President Auerberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy,
No,
Councilmember Van Tassel.
Yes.
Councilmember Weller,
Yes.
Council President Shortway.
Yes.
Well, thank you very
Motion
much, Mr.
carries.
Council President. Essentially, I'll have the budget adjusted. For those employees we've named, their increase will be 4%.
so can I ask, can we address this money that was paid out last year, because there was no vote? That needs to be
You know,
addressed.
we can address it at some other time. What I really want to do for the budget here, I have nothing to do
But
with.
that's in the budget.
Well, I have nothing to do with what was done last year. But I'm not really so sure. I'd like to know, are there any other things in this particular budget here that are that the council wants changed? So we know in terms of salary, 4% across the board for those particular employees that we named.
Are there any
Now,
capital items, et cetera?
what about those other employees?
What other employees?
There was the zoning officer, the plumbing code official.
The bottom three, well, those are, the salary ordinance is on for tonight,
Okay, all right.
so that would be,
Okay, that'll be taken care of by
It's all
that.
separate issue.
Okay, all right, good.
Is there anything else?
Question, this latest sheet that we got tonight before we came in.
Yes, sir.
What's the highlight? There's,
The green and the
Oh.
orange?
Yeah,
yeah,
what's
so,
the-
so just to explain, the green, any of these highlights are what I consider cash capital. So it's funds that we already have away, which are capital improvement fund and, capital fund balance funds that we have
Okay.
available. And then the green items are the part of the new appropriation, the 600,000 that goes to capital improvement fund,
the orange is?
existing items that are already in capital.
Okay.
So we had some funds left over from capital improvement fund last year. And then there's capital fund balance, which is a combination of things. If we cancel any items that were paid for in cash in the past, it could go to capital fund balance. If we get any, premiums on note sales, I cancel that to capital fund balance, and then we can use that to pay for things in cash rather than going out to debt.
And we did that, Mr. Allberger, because you had indicated that you were interested in some of the capital things. So just to make sure you could see the line through some of the things that have been taken out.
I honestly have to say, in my opinion, I'd rather see, just because we have debt to pay down, if it wasn't for that, I'd be all for the bike track.
Right.
But I'd rather see that money come out, see the PD get their message board, which the people of the town, they've shown a great need for. They can put it up on one end of the road, but they're still stuck for the other end because they're not always available at the county level because everybody needs it. I'd rather see the trailer, the message trailer go back in, and then the rest of that track money go towards paying down debt. I mean, if we didn't have the MUA hanging over our head and some of these other things,
Yep.
the hotel not paying, yeah, we could give everything that we really need to do, but, some places we just have to cut and pay down.
Do we even have a location for that track?
We're looking at the DPW of Black Creek Drive. We have the 11 acres there. We started cleaning up 4 years ago, right there. And that would fit in right with the town center trail. We could even probably take some of the money, because it was in the referendum that passed, take some of that money, that 30%, and put that towards the bike track also. But the whole idea is an amenity to attract people to the town center,
I
so
understand.
small businesses can make it.
Is that track actually $150,000 to do
Well, we haven't had,
a pump track?
we're just putting the money in there. We haven't had anybody give proposals yet, the engineer. It's just putting the money there, should we need it. And then we could take money with council approval also out of the open space fund. But would you
Just-
please?
No.
Just to be clear too, so that 150 that's in there though, that's not cash. So that would be, that's just part of our capital plan. That would be something that, like, there's
We-
enough to put aside to
Bond.
put for a down payment, but that's not necessarily inclusive. So that's just in there as part of the capital plan for the township, that we would debt out for that if that's something that we are going to do. Again, that's all still passed through council the way a capital ordinance or a bond ordinance is passed. So if you guys didn't want that in there or it didn't come, to fruition, it would just not be taken care of that. And the down payment on that is minimal. You're looking at 5% of that would be required for an upfront cash payment.
And if we don't do it, what happens to the money?
That if it's 5% of $150,000.
So one of the things at that pump track meeting that I recommended is if the pump track is moving faster, which it would appear that the people involved in this, and they weren't asking for the money, they were asking for a location. But it gets to a point of, where do you do the fundraising and everything? My recommendation was, since we had money that the public already allowed, the residents already voted to move money from our open space fund for the trail, but it could be used for the pump track, use that money for the pump track. And in November, because I don't see the trail being built out this year over there. So if you were able to go back, put the question back on the ballot, if everybody still wants, things are progressing, you've got a pump track now with the money that came from there, and people are utilizing it, and you say, okay, now we want to build the trail around it, can we have some more money out of it? Then you can do that. I mean, it overwhelmingly passed last time, why wouldn't it this time? If you're showing you're doing something with it. For me, I look at it and say, the public asked for 30%, we have it. We haven't done anything with it, and now we're putting money in the capital for yet something else for the pump track that was in that question, because that was in the referendum, pump track. So now, to me, it looks like, well, gee, you asked for money, I gave it to you, and now you're just putting it in there.
We're finding a different route for the trail because the owner of the easement will not give us biking and hiking because we enforced our laws at Legends.
Not necessarily.
That's what it explained to me. So there's
long
approximately,
ago
simple
did that
math,
happen?
$1 million.
How long ago was that conversation, last year or 2 years ago?
It was through Mountain Creek probably 3 months ago.
Okay, because
I know.
there may
I know.
be some talks opening, from what I'm
Okay.
hearing.
Well,
So,
did you talk to someone
I
that
just-
you're hearing? Where are you hearing this?
I-
Because this is important information if you have
it
it.
was a discussion we had at that meeting, when I said I would make a call, and it's in the mayor's hands right now, so.
So you made the call. Who'd you talk to?
I spoke to the mayor, you can speak to the mayor.
Okay.
I don't mind saying, but I don't want to betray any kind
No.
of confidence. She said she made a call.
At that meeting, I said, okay, I'll
Yeah.
make the call. And I made a call, and I brought the information back to the mayor.
And an individual said, in essence, he might be likely to give us that easement if I ask. Kind of, am I right on that? That's what I think you said.
They'd like to work with the town.
Yeah.
Under what circumstances, under
Yeah.
what terms, that I don't know. That's in your, that's in
But
your.
I think still, as it relates to this money, the whole idea of planning, you need to put it in your budget. That's what we got it there for. And as Donnell had indicated, and as I understand, before we would spend this money on this particular item, we would have to get council approval.
It would be 4-1 if it goes out on a banner.
Yeah, on a bond ordinance, it's a 4-to-1 vote.
4-to-1.
And also, I just want to be clear.
If we wanted the bond,
that-
we'd have to have 4, not 3. So we'd have it in the budget, but we need still to get council approval, so. And I think that what Mrs. Murphy was saying, as I understand, just based on some of the conversations we have, I think she kind of wants to make sure that if there's money we put for one item, that it's not spent for another item. It's either she said that to me directly or strongly indicated that. And in this particular case here, our approving that item in the budget would not allow us to spend that money for something else. I don't believe. I don't know how.
Well, we have approximately 100,000 for the trail, right now. That was approved. So there's approximately another 150,000 still in that 30% of that open space from the referendum, right?
Yes.
Easy math, right? We said 30%, it was almost $1 million, I think it was $927,000. So it was approximately 300,000, or let's say 250.
Yes.
And the word pump
this-
track was in
this-
that referendum.
This $150,000, like I was explaining before, this would be deaded out. It has a longer useful life, which I like to see on a bond ordinance. But the important part here to note is that out of that 150, we're only actually budgeting $7,200 to put towards that. So if we end up not going out to debt for it, that $7,200 is gonna sit in capital improvement fund that can be used next year. Or if something comes up and we needed to buy something, it could go through a capital ordinance through cash.
So we're only talking $7,200.
Yeah,
But the whole point is, if we do go forward with it, which the people that want the pump track go forward, we should be using the money that the public said we could.
I'm sorry, that's also a
No.
possibility.
I mean, it's better to have two options. Have Plan 1, have Plan A, and have another option.
The second option is fundraising.
Good luck with that.
Well, but that's what they came and said they were doing that. So it's not the good luck with it. It's just trying to be,
We've
giving the
gone to this-
voters what they voted for.
We just said that having this as a backup plan. And it still would have to pass the council 4-1.
Council President Alberger, in great part, not only because of you, but in great part because this was a concern that you expressed, this is why we made these adjustments to the capital plan. Is this agreeable with you as based on the discussion we've had and what we've got now? Is this capital plan agreeable with you?
And the group will go with it, that's all that matters.
Okay.
In other words, does he have 4 votes?
Well, we'll see if it has 4 votes at the time when we have to use it, right?
Right,
Okay.
then we'll go forward, and then we'll have to use open space money.
Are there any other items in the budget?
And you also you did hire somebody in finance already for the part-time clerk position, correct?
Right.
Okay, without the budget passing, by the way. Just wanted to mention that, if it's in the budget, you know, like I said, they don't wait for you to vote for it,
No, we're nothing if not consistent.
yes. So that's why I just say, you go through and you ask about stuff, and what's the point? You're just going, you know, I mean,
In the first budget that we received, $1,000 was asked for the historical preservation. I see now in the second edition, it's up to 4,000. Economic went from 1,500 up to 5,000.
Let
Just
me
to explain those
Yeah, I
bigger
most certainly
jumps.
can. I most certainly can. Historical Preservation Commission advised me that there are actually 2 historical plaques that have been approved and that we need to buy. And I don't have my data right, but the amount of money that's in there is the cost of those 2 historical plaques. That's what that's for. As it relates to the Economic Development Commission, I have challenged the Economic Development Advisory Board not just to be a commission in name only. I have asked them to do something to help us market the town. And the vision that they brought to me, and which ones I've accepted, and I'm going to pass this down. This is Hardiston's economic development. Hardiston has an attachment to their website. It's economic development, and that when people click on this, this is what they see, which I thought was really just great. And what I've asked them to do is to develop something similar for Vernon. I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost, but I put that amount of money in there. And my commitment to you is that if in fact we don't have to spend that money, we won't. But it's going to be in the development of a document like this. It'll be development of having it attached to our website. It'll be a very, very positive kind of thing, but that's what that money is in there for.
So they would be building like a portfolio. I come in, I want to start a business, you're going to hand me something, tell me what.
They will be building a portfolio, but this would be actually on the website. You go to our website, Vernon Township website, Economic Development, you click on it, and you'll come to a page like this. And this itself is very promotional. I mean, it just promotes the town. We don't have anything that kind of promotes our town like this. And then there are other things. The Economic Development Commission is also looking at things such as trying to develop sheets maybe that we could pass out to potential employees. You need to do this first, second, third, to kind of help people along.
That's
to
what
make-
I mean, like you would have, like MUA, what I have to do through the MUA.
Yeah.
I'm gonna build a building.
Exactly
You know,
correct.
what do I have to do at zoning, building department?
Absolutely.
Board of Health?
Right. And what you gotta do first, second, and third. We had a situation here just recently where we had an individual who wants to open a deli. The individual went to the health department because I think our current instruction says you need to go to the health department first, and that's true. However, when he went to the health department looks at certain things. So when he came to our building department, it was discovered that based on, as I understand, based on the initial plans that he submitted, am I right, Chuck? There were some things that needed to be changed. Could you explain it to me? I don't want to talk out of turn. It's just an example without.
He went to the health department and he asked, do I need architectural plans? They said, no, we don't require any architectural plans. He went to the building department and started asking about whether or not for plumbing purposes, because a lot of his questions were centered around plumbing because he's putting in a deli which didn't have sinks. And a lot of it where he wanted to put it was closer to electrical boxes, which wasn't feasible. So initially, he was told on plumbing that, no, you wouldn't necessarily need it for plumbing. As it turned out later on, some of the wall changes that he was looking to make and everything, he was running into a problem. They told him, for these kinds of changes that you're talking about, yes, you're going to need architectural plans. So the initial being told, no, you didn't, and then later, yes, you did, he said, I lost time. If I had known that ahead of time, it would have been simpler if I had just had them done. And again, that's something was I believe, a miscommunication, and we've since resolved it with that individual. He understands perfectly. We showed him the code where and why it's required. So, and that's the way we want to try to proceed, so that it makes it easier for people to understand.
And it's not necessarily just to resolve every problem, but with a good economic development commission like I've got, they can sit down and talk to that person. We could kind of develop more plans, like how could we prevent this in the future and what have you. So they're going to be doing those different kinds of things. Maybe our first shot in terms of a handout might still have some holes in it for the next person, but we've got somebody who's going to be looking at that, is going to be focusing on that and getting us something different. Another thing that the Economic Development Commission have done, they've actually printed up signs that a little leaflets that says, in essence, I wish I had brought it with me, that we want business here, we want to help you and what have you. If there are any issues or problems, call us, help us, let us walk you through those different kinds of things. And not only do they have the leaflets, but they are literally willing to be able to do that. So that money that I've got in the budget here is to make sure that we maximize this opportunity that we've got. But we're not going to spend it if it's not necessary. But that's what it's for.
Okay. Just as long as it progresses where they're helping business and not just becoming another layer of government that you got to negotiate.
I agree wholeheartedly. We don't need that. We've got enough of that.
While we're on this subject, since I was looking through the union contracts, the ones with the UAW contract, too many letters. It states in there, and this is because I know that it down for the 911, I think they have to work 40 hours, it says, and for up here it's 35 hours.
Yeah.
So if everybody is here from 8:30 to 4, 37 and a half hours a week, right? How long, it says they can take a 15-minute break and up to a 45-minute lunch. So I'm just wondering, what does go on?
You mean how long a lunch break do they take?
Yeah, how long are they at lunch? And I'm just, everybody follows suit, so I'm just asking, since the contract, since I was forced to go look at the contracts, you start reading more. And it says 35 hours.
Yeah.
So if you're here at 8:30 to 4, and I know I see Ed sitting here because I remember at one point we were discussing this because I think the DPW is here actually a half hour longer. I think that's how it is. So I'm just wondering, what is the time frame that all the employees, if we're going to be discussing this with, pays and everything, what is it?
Well, I'm
At
gonna
35
let,
hours
I'm gonna let Chuck answer, but let me just say this in general, and I know you don't want an in general answer. You want it very specific. That, we have cameras all around the building.
Oh, what?
Well,
This has
no.
nothing to do with camera. No.
No, let me just say, and I said, based on that, I know when people come in, and I know when they leave after, there are lots of people who work after hours, not everybody.
That-
I know that's not your exact question.
No, that's not my question.
Oh, okay.
I'm just asking, it says 35 hours, so you have to work
Well,
35 hours. So are you taking a half-hour lunch? Are you taking one break? Are you taking two breaks? Are you taking no break? Are you taking an hour?
Well-
I don't know, I'm just asking because.
Okay, and you did, and out of respect for you did ask for a specific answer, and I tried to put it in
Yeah,
context.
I'm not
but
asking
that's
if
not-
cameras, if somebody's spying on how long
No,
somebody.
no, I wanted you to know why I was about to say that I think that our people really work and earn that time they're in. But I'll let Chuck answer. Chuck, can you answer that? Do you follow everybody? You know?
I don't
what-
follow everybody, but everyone knows that if they're not taking the break, they can add that time to their lunch. It's as simple as that.
But what is the lunch? What is the lunch? So that's what I'm just saying, is if they're here in the building 37 and a half hours a week, and I'm talking about the UAW contract says 35 hours, what has to be worked, I'm just going to guess that everybody follows that schedule, because everybody else is here from 8:30 to 4. So how long are the lunches then? Because according to that, looks like you get 15 minutes, because since it says you could take up to a 45-minute lunch if you wanted to. But if they're only working, if they have to work 35 hours, they're only here 37 and a half, that's a half hour for a lunch and break. So that's why I'm asking. What's the norm? Are people taking just a half hour? Are they taking more? The taxpayers are paying, the taxpayers should know. I mean, we've discussed about the hours. As a matter of fact, I think at one of the last meetings, Council President Shortway said, oh, well, I mentioned something to, and I don't know your exact words, about having some people work longer hours. But I'm asking, what is the norm? Because if I'm reading that correctly, it should be a half hour if everybody has to be here 35 hours to work. I mean, we're doing comp time, so that's just my question. I mean, we shouldn't be giving comp time if people are taking an hour for lunch.
Well,
And I don't know that they are, but I'm just.
Yeah, you asked a legitimate question, and out of respect for you and try to be honest myself, I'll tell you I don't exactly know, but I will find out.
Thank
I
you.
promise you, I'll find out.
And have we started sending people to classes already?
Yes.
No budget, but I'm just saying that, the temporary budgets have passed, so the spending has started. So we're hiring, we're sending to school, we're just,
Anybody else have anything else?
I just have a question, and maybe it's a silly one, but in regards to
Never a
salary,
silly question.
I hate to bring it up again, but why does it have to be across the board 4%? Why isn't it person-specific? Why isn't it performance-based? Why aren't there other variables taken into consideration? Maybe one person, for one reason or another, deserves 2.5%. Someone else maybe deserves 4.5%. I'm just curious, I mean, maybe that person's a little closer to what that average is for the state, right? So I think there's a lot of variables, so I'm curious why it's 4% across the board.
Well, first of all, that's an excellent point that you made. And when I mentioned that these salary enhancements that I recommended were not done lightly, it was because I did consider those facts. That's why you've got one person who was at 30% below the average that I recommended they come up 18%. Some people were 30% below the average. I recommended come up 10%. Looking at those kind of variables, that's what I was looking at. Now, why is it 4% across the board? Truthfully, that's what I could get from the council. I mean, that's what I can get majority of the council to agree on. So, and under this system, as the mayor, I have to take what I can get from the majority of the council. That's just the truth, the way it is.
and actually, you do bring up an excellent point, because in your chart, you had at least one that was at the average and one that was way over. So you're further,
You mean in this last chart?
No, not that last chart. That last chart, no. The one that you.
The
you know,
initial
well,
one?
The initial one, where you said, oh, this is what the state is. There were a couple employees, one was at, and because one was only at, I think the percentage was low, and one was, like you said, I think you said one was over, way over, maybe 10,000 over what the average was. So, that's what- to your point, when you're looking at this, you're just still skewing the numbers.
Well, I don't think there was anybody 10,000 over, because if someone who was 10,000 over the average, I wouldn't have recommended necessarily that they get an increase. I don't remember that. But if there was, I might have had all the salaries in there, whatever. I didn't decrease anybody's salary. I didn't recommend decreasing anybody's salary. So whatever, it might have been, it was.
So going back to Kelly's point, maybe in the future, because you do day-to-day operations, I guess.
Right.
Maybe in the future, we do performance evaluations.
Yeah.
Just something to consider for, maybe doing 2020, 2021.
Yep.
Have your department heads, and you evaluate them. Just something to consider, to back up what
I think it's important.
Kelly
I think
just brought up.
there needs to be some measurables, right? I think
Well, you're in the private sector, and I was international sales manager for years in a company. I retired from the private sector, and everybody had those. So I know exactly where you're coming from and what you're talking about. Makes sense.
Can I just raise a point with regard to that? We have a little bit of a hybrid, but it's mostly slanted towards having union employees who have representation, have contracts. You have a small percentage of your employees who are not. So they don't have an opportunity to negotiate. They have no step increases, they have no longevity. So to not give it uniformly across the board, is not generally done in this government. So I'm not speaking to the government, I'm saying in general, you don't find that would be the case, because then it would look like favoritism. Again, we're a civil service town, we try to follow civil service rules, so, and I'm not saying that the civil service would have a problem with that per se, but that's the idea that you have the majority of your employees are represented by union. You have this group that is not. Okay, so to make them the only ones that are given employee evaluations to determine how much money they are given for a raise is not truly fair.
But it's public information also. I know, I only worked a brief time in the private industry. We were always told if you got the raise, don't let anybody else know, but public government, I can just get on the website and I can start looking, or I can Oprah it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would create problems, but, I think Kelly brings, even if their raise is performance-based, it's something I thought about when I was mayor, but it's just a suggestion.
it's just
based-
something to think
based
about,
on-
not even like the performance piece, how long have they been in the position versus someone, I think there's a lot of variables to
Yeah.
consider, and across the board, I totally understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but across the board just seems like it could be in favor of one and maybe not in favor of someone else.
So you're saying you would like longevity or step increases like the unions?
No.
No. Okay, just asking.
Yeah, longevity, good one.
Well, I most certainly have been requested across the board, but, if that's, and I won't be recommending across the board in the next budget. I won't be recommending, but it won't be across the board. But I hope that you also understand that this form of government requires that the executive and the legislative branch work together. It forces us to do so if we want to or not. And so that's what we have to do.
And since I was going through things, in 2017, just to drag something out, we passed a resolution because it had to do with the 2% cap on police and fire arbitration contracts. And a little whereas in this. Whereas salary costs to a great extent drive property tax increases. And this was actually, the vote was 4-1, Mr. Wetzel was absent. But this was brought to our attention by Senator Oroho, Parker Space, Lieutenant Governor, in order to, because that's what was happening, is we were sending this out. All the municipalities were doing this just to try to, help with what was going on, to try to reinforce that they retain that. And is there an average, what's the average cost for like the employees' benefits package?
Which one do you want?
I mean, if you have insurance and,
Medical, prescription. Little dental,
Well,
there's
there's
all
single-
different
single,
parts of
there's
it.
Plans for
family,
single, there's
yeah.
just husband and
Right,
wife,
but-
and then there's family.
Because we offer estate plan, because they have like 10 plans to choose from. Because someone that's younger doesn't want the Cadillac plan, they'd rather have the money in their
Right, so
paycheck.
they, right,
So
and
I
then
don't
they
know
pay
how you would
less,
have,
right.
you could just add it up in the budget and divide it by your number of employees, but I don't know how you're gonna get a real average on that.
But, well, just for the public, but there's, it's health insurance, it's vacation time, it's
But
holidays,
addressing-
14 holidays. So that's why, like I said, it all,
Question, under the park improvements, the flats, we have 50,000 to complete the walkway from one side to the other. What is that consisting of? What is that gonna be, pavers, asphalt?
It's actually the extension for the ADA compliant walkways. So we actually got a very wide range of quotes. The first quote we got was like 30,000 and the second was 50. So I did work with the Recreation Senior Director and I asked her to go out again just so we can get an approximate. I put 50 in there. We would only be getting out what is necessary and what we could get on an actual bid because we probably bid the project out.
That would also require a 4-to-1, correct?
Yes.
just one more thing on the salaries. The union employees, were their increases just given according to their contract, or were they also bumped?
I don't understand the question.
The union employees that work up here, were their increases that were included in the budget what's according to their contract, or were they actually given additional?
Those were just included according to what's in the contract. Yeah. Yeah, just contractual.
Well, I'd like to see the stipend removed,
The stipend for who?
the one that is for HR benefits and that other, that,
Domestic violence?
yeah, the domestic violence. Like I said, I've called a few towns, I don't know anyone that has even implemented that. And quite frankly, that was not anything that was ever approved last year. And
Well-
it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, it didn't exist.
Is that state mandated?
On June, then maybe if somebody could do an average and find out from what towns are actually, that wasn't mandated when the stipend went into, the supposedly stipend went into effect, because as far as I'm concerned, we can consider it a bonus.
Even if it was mandated, we still have to have something on the books that it's there.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying the payroll change went through on June 21st.
There's gotta be some sort of ordinance for the,
Right, the payroll change
Well, we
went through
passed
on
a
June 21st.
resolution accepting the
Right,
domestic
but-
violence.
Right, but let's go back to the payroll change went through on June 21st. The state put this through in October.
That's correct.
Right, and it was naming two people. It wasn't, it's like, what is the job entail? But it was just naming, giving them two names. Some of the municipalities,
But the policy was in there as to what the responsibilities are for the people that are doing that.
right, but the point is, the stipend went in, started being paid in June for something that didn't exist.
The stipend that was paid last year was strictly for the HR benefits, not for the domestic violence.
Correct,
Right.
but it didn't exist, it still doesn't exist.
The work exists,
The work existed before the stipend.
correct.
And somebody was doing it, but all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we're going to pay a stipend today. As far as I'm concerned, somebody owes the taxpayers $1,836.
Or we could do the desk audit and see how that plays
See,
out.
and there you go, there's the magic word, we're going to do a desk audit.
Well,
That's everything.
No, that's not my words, it's
Yes,
what
it
the
is. It's
person
your
has the
word.
right to do.
That's
You're
what
trying to
you did.
circumvent the system.
No, that's
Yes,
what you
you
did
are.
with the accounting assistant position.
We're
last year.
we're actually trying to keep it down by offering a small stipend rather than have them do a desk audit and show the
That's what you
list
did
of-
last year with the
of
accounting assistant
Over 20
position.
duties that are not, they are not responsible in their classification.
Yeah, you did that last year.
Yeah, you did.
I know, you
And
did that.
and after advising you not to let it go that far, and it did.
Would you like to
Can we
read the
move this on?
emails?
We've hashed this out 2 or
Right.
3 times.
We have, and you actually, the emails are there, and you just went ahead and did it.
Is there anything else anybody wants to see with the budget? Added, subtracted, suggestions, recommendations?
Sure, reduce it.
reduce it, but I'd really like to see the message trailer go back in for PD.
But the $20,000?
The message trailer,
That's what we- I'm just
I know,
saying,
but
it's-
we
it's
had
little.
one raise that was that, so it would have
My
been
point-
covered.
Right, my point is, it's a small item, but it was removed.
I think it's a very,
Needed item for
Yeah.
the residents.
You want to
yeah,
do a straw?
we will,
No, there's no straw
I-
vote. It
It's
was
not
in
gonna
the-
change, it's
we
not
agreed
gonna
last
change,
year.
just so you know, it won't change the amount, because there's a,
$20,000 are, yeah. The message trailer is needed. It is needed. And I understand John's point. We were simply trying to figure out things that we could cut out in order to, we basically need your votes, what we really need.
I understand that,
Yeah.
because that's where does the council, any council, gonna save on money? It's gonna be on salaries, it's gonna be on capital expenditures. I see that the stand-on blower was taken out, which, in meeting with the Board of Ed the other day, maybe that's a shared service because they have a turf field too. If there's equipment, we were talking back and forth, if there's equipment that they have or equipment that we have, maybe something can be worked out. So that's something that I'm sure will be brought to your office by Ed. Just wherever we can pool services in town, whether it's another town, whether it's a county, whatever we can do to try to save.
We're constantly doing it. In fact, we're looking at now, we actually had some shared services agreements that we had last year that was taken away simply because the municipality chose to go some other way. And we've got, I've been in contact with the mayor of another town recently here, and we might have another a service agreement coming, a shared service agreement coming. One of the real good things, some of the work that we've actually done with our animal shelter started under Council President Shortway, but we made just tremendous improvement in it. We resolved some real problems, some of those you might know about. And the net result is that it might result in us getting more, getting some shared service agreement. But I hear you, anything that we can do, we will. Got my commitment on it, we will. And if in fact, if there's something, Councilman Allberger, that I'm not doing, please, you're no shy person, you're no stranger to me, I'm no stranger to you. Please come in and I'll try to address it. All right?
I think you're a good point, put that 20,000 back in.
Yeah, and we will, we'll do that.
I think when the police department was here, when Dan Young gave his presentation, I think everybody was on board that it should have been in there.
Yeah.
Nobody spoke against it.
to see that
But
going.
we didn't take it out without talking to him. We really did.
I mean, it seems like we're nickel and diming things here back and forth, but it adds up.
Yeah,
It all adds up.
right.
That's like, we took out the pump track for the bike.
Yeah.
The top of the property that we have on the one pump station by the Master Plumbing, yeah, it's a nice site. Even if they, with the use of the DPW, went in there and did something just with a dirt track, as opposed to what Port Jervis did with macadam and drainage and everything else, just to see how much it gets used and go from there.
Trust me, as we are evaluating the whole thing with the pump track, part of that evaluation is how much work the DPW can do. We're looking at a very holistic kind of view of it, and not just trying to throw money at it, because we don't have money to throw at it. But we'll put the 20,000 back in for the trail.
Anything else?
Well, before you end, Council President.
Public comments.
Okay, yeah, okay, I just want to really, really thank the council. I really thank you very much. That's it.
Okay, please note, we'll open up if I can have a motion for public comments again. Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, anybody who wants to come up, state your name, where you live in town, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Does anybody care to address? See no one wishes to address the council, can I have a motion to close public comments?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Council comments, or you want to go mayor's report, or, you pretty much said it.
That's it, I've got a budget, I'll as it relates to the salary, 4% across the board. Those items that we said we take out, those items that we put in, we do that, and I'll have that ready, to be presented to the council, at the next meeting, introduction of the budget.
Thank you. Council comments? Ms. Murphy, you want to start?
I have
I've seen it.
She has not.
I have
Nothing? John?
Nothing.
Nothing? Kelly?
Nothing.
I have nothing else other than good meeting.
Yeah,
Discussion.
very good meeting.
Motion to?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you.